All right, welcome to another episode of the Coffee Break Podcast, where our mission is to share business ideas, practices, and strategies while we enjoy our cup of coffee. My name's Chad Lingafelt with Loc-Doc Security. Today's guest is all the way from Nashville, Tennessee, from Music City, USA. Is that right? Is that what you call it?
Yeah, Nashville, Tennessee, Music City, baby. That's how I say it, at least.
We're going to be talking with Blake Urmos in just a few moments from Low Voltage Nation. It's going to be an exciting conversation about building community. We'll be right back after this.
We got so much to say. We got a podcast to make. We're sipping on lattes, and it's time for a coffee break. It's time for a coffee break. Oh, yeah.
All right, Blake, thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule to be with us and connect with us. I know you're a busy man right now in the middle of making a bunch of content, so thank you very much for joining us.
Absolutely. Hey, Chad, thank you so much for having me, man. This is exciting, something a little bit new. I usually do audio, but I'm on the video feed right now, so I'm pretty excited about it, man. So I appreciate it.
Awesome. All right, well, this is what we do. On every episode, we have one segment called Rapid Fire, 5 randomly selected questions with unknown point values just to get under your skin a little bit. So are you ready?
Oh, no. No, but go ahead.
All right. What band would you be embarrassed to admit that you listen to?
Blondie, I think. I don't know why I said that, but let's just roll with that. Blondie.
What is Blondie?
I don't know. Was it? I think it's like, call me. Da, 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 da. No? All right. Anyway.
That's good. That's good. Nailed it. All right. Number 2, what interesting skill do you want to learn?
Interesting skill that I want to learn. So since I'm in low voltage, I actually want to learn how to install fire alarm systems. I don't know them that well. I know how to do like the schematics. I do a lot of like AutoCAD stuff with another team out of India, and I'm like super fascinated by like what they've done with these floor plans, because I don't know it. I know a little bit now, but I've installed a couple smoke detectors, heat detectors. But I want to learn like how to actually like program a fire alarm system.
That's a very interesting skill. All right. Number 3, what was your favorite Halloween costume, as it is the week of Halloween? What was your favorite Halloween costume you wore as a child?
As a child? Oh, this okay. I got one. Okay, this is my mom made this for me. She totally rolled with it. I said, "Hey, Mom, I want to be a commode," and she totally. I'll get you. I'll find. My mom would love this. I gotta find a picture of that. Like she made the whole thing, and then you open up the toilet, and then that's where you put the candy.
Naturally. That's good. All right, number 4. What was your first job, and what did you like or dislike about it?
Backstreet Cafe in High Point, North Carolina. I would pick up the phone and take the food order. I would cook the food order, and then I would deliver the food order. Then I would go back and do the dishes. I don't think I really liked that job. But it taught me a lot of skills, obviously.
Sure.
A lot of back of house stuff and learning how to drive without like a GPS. This is before we had like GPS. So I learned a lot. The city, cooking, cleaning, everything.
I mean, in High Point, though. All right. And then the last question, number 5, what show on Netflix did you binge watch?
Oh, okay. So when I got into Netflix, it was a bad thing. And like, I've only binge watched, I think, one show, Prison Break.
Oh,
yeah, and like I just watched it for like an entire weekend, and I was like, "What am I doing with my life?"
What does my life come to?
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah,
you made it. You passed all 5 questions, a score of 836. So very,
awesome,
very solid scoring there. All right, so Blake, let's kind of go back because we've only known each other for all of about 72 hours, and it has been interesting because I was on Instagram a couple of weeks ago, as I feel like a lot of the introductions that I give on this podcast start with, I was on Instagram. But I was on Instagram and I saw somebody post about something that you're working on right now, which is Low Voltage Nation and a podcast. And they said, "Hey, check this thing out." So naturally I did, because I was intrigued by podcasts, went and checked it out, started listening to one of the episodes that you had with Brian Ackerley from AB Lock and Key. And I was like, while listening to him talk about some of the processes that they have implemented in their organization and how you guys were just sharing a bunch of ideas, and then he mentioned Loc-Doc in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was like, what in the world? Who is this guy? All of this came down. I sent you a message on Instagram and said, hey, love what you're doing. Let's chat. And we chatted on the phone the other day just to kind of get to know each other a little better, and now we're sitting here. So all that to say, this is the fun part of social media is you're doing something big and developing a community. And I was like, hey, let's talk about how you're doing that and why you're doing that is really the big question. And kind of get to know you a little better on that front, because I feel like it's a very interesting concept that you're running with. So with all that, as a little bit of lead up and introduction, tell us a little bit of who Blake is and why you are kind of sitting where you are with creating this community.
Yeah, so I guess I can back up and talk about, my career when it started in Akron, Ohio. I was an IT director for a behavioral healthcare agency, and I was building the infrastructure, virtualizing the servers, and then I started to do the electronic health record system for them. And that's when it really kind of kicked into gear, and I got to Nashville, started doing project management for implementing electronic health records. And then I did that for several years, going around the country. Then I moved into another position doing hospital data centers and nurse call systems. And that's where I heard the term low voltage. I had no idea what low voltage was, even though I have a background. I went to school for, Cisco network administration. That's kind of my background, but I also did some sound engineering stuff. So I was always working with, in some form or fashion, low voltage infrastructure, but I never heard the term low voltage. So when I started working for this company doing nurse call systems and data centers for hospitals, that's when I started doing like really hands-on like construction stuff, and then running the cable, the fiber optic, the category 6, terminating it, and then installing the devices that are connected to all these, PoE switches and all this low voltage stuff. So, and that was just about 3 years ago. And then I took another job because I wanted to get off the road, doing surveillance systems, access control systems, and really heavy into, that's where I'm at right now at Guardian Systems, really heavy in doing a lot of data cable runs, a lot of network administration, some project management, implementations, like the whole like 9 yards when it comes to programming systems and installing it from A to Z. So while I'm working at Guardian, there was an opportunity, and I'm kind of like the marketing director for Guardian, but we have so much business that they're kind of like, well, hold on, let's just get caught up real quick before we start driving more leads and getting more people in the pipeline. I'm like, all right, cool. So I'm gonna start this thing called Low Voltage Nation, and the purpose of Low Voltage Nation is to help other folks find a fulfilling career in low voltage and technology. And it's kind of like scratching my own itch. I want to have fulfillment, but I also want to help other people do the same thing, because I have all this experience, working for all these different companies, traveling around the country, installing infrastructure. And I've had a great time doing it. And it's just kind of like, it just started as a hobby basically, but it really turned into this huge community now with, I have 19 ambassadors that are using the Low Voltage Nation hashtag, and we're meeting on a weekly basis with the mastermind meeting, and we're using Slack to tie it all together. And I've interviewed 27 guests on the podcast. So like in a matter of like 4 or 5 months, it's just like, holy smokes, like this thing has some traction, some serious traction. And the message of just helping other people and doing it in a very positive and healthy way. Like that's the big thing. Like you got to be positive, you got to be healthy. No like name calling, it's all just really just uplifting and helping other people. That's what I really promote in the Slack channel. And that message has really resonated with people, and it's just growing so much in 5 months. So that's the story.
So in industry networks, industry groups, that's not anything revolutionary. That's not anything new, but the way that you've gone about it and started building it is a little unique. So creating out of the box, creating a podcast, out of the box, creating a Slack channel, the masterminds group, all of these things that you're doing to really drive the community, right? Really drive engagement and involvement, I think is one of the things that caught my attention and was very unique, along with your energy and your excitement for building community. So what is the driver behind that? What is the driver that says, hey, I really want to engage in in the community that's in this industry? Because honestly, that's not normal in the industry. People are very standoffish, the way, especially in the security industry, they're very standoffish. So that's one of the things that's intriguing. Why would you go about it, and what's kind of the driver for building that community?
So there's a number of things that are going on there. So one of the things that I've really emulated is, and I'm actually wearing the shirt, Trusted Sec is an information security company out of Northeast Ohio. And this guy, Dave Kennedy, started this company, and his career has just gone insanely, it just exploded over the past few years. And what he does is he had this conference called DerbyCon, and the message behind that is positivity, inclusiveness, knowledge sharing, and charity work. And I've emulated a lot of stuff that he's done, and I've just seen like his method of just being like a really stand-up good dude and building a massive information security community. I kind of just took what he's done, and then a lot of what Gary Vaynerchuk, I'm sure everybody's heard of Gary Vaynerchuk, a lot of what he's done with the positivity and the kindness, and just kind of built that community around that. And I'm a real excitable, energetic person, and I like to, when I'm with other people, I want to get them excited about what they're doing, and that's just kind of just those three things have really just kind of just built this community around positivity.
And so you're, again, just kind of some of the framework behind it, because from our podcast perspective, one of the directives that we go about is just kind of business development strategy ideas. And so just thinking outside of, kind of stripping away the low voltage side of it, because that's obviously a industry that we're both connected in. But if you take that out of the equation, it is community. You're building a community of like-minded individuals that are sharing ideas and growing together while encouraging each other simultaneously. So the framework around that, you just kind of talked about that, the framework that brings you to that point. And then what's the gain from it? What's the goal? What's the goal for the long term?
Yeah, so it really goes back to the mission of what I'm doing, and that's finding fulfillment in low voltage and technology. And it's really just right now, early on, like I just want to have fun and help other people, find that fulfillment. Like that's like you can't put a dollar sign or any monetary value on like helping other people and having a good time doing it. So for right now, it's just building a community, to be honest, and sharing that knowledge and giving back. That's really all I'm trying to do right now.
Well, and I think it's very admirable, because again, like I said, you're a very exciting individual, and so to interject that into somebody that's maybe lost a little bit of that excitement of the industry or of their career, and to be able to say, hey guys, this is what we can do. Hey, we can work together and grow together is something that's really cool. And to see it grow so fast is very interesting. Of all of the components that you've put together, do you think that, so and as we were talking about earlier, you've got the podcast that you're doing, you've got the Masterminds call, which just for anybody that says, what in the world are you talking about as a Masterminds call, kind of give a description of that.
Yeah, so the mastermind meeting, what we do is we meet every week. We've had 3 meetings so far. The first one was on business development. The second one was on access control system. The third one was on cameras. But half of the meeting is about the purpose of it is for knowledge sharing, community building, and growth strategies. So we talk a lot about how we keep engaged on the Instagram community, especially, and all platforms, but mainly the Instagram community. And we help each other, we follow each other, we use the Low Voltage Nation hashtag. So a lot of it's growth strategies and business development, so helping business owners figure out cool ways to do digital marketing. And also we have a focus area, so like I said, access control, business development, and cameras. Those are the 3 we've had so far, and those actually get tied to the Slack channels. So each topic, each focus area is in the Slack channel. So we have individual channels, fire alarm systems, structured cabling. So we're gonna go down the list, and we pick out the topics and the information that are in those channels, and that becomes the mastermind meeting. And it's basically just to put our minds together and solve problems in the industry, and then continue on with building the community.
So the podcast is a recorded conversation. The masterminds is a weekly engagement, and then the Slack is a kind of an ongoing engagement outside of the social side. Where do you see the benefit of each one of those? And do you think that it's just the formula of all three of them together, or do you think that you're getting more traction or more benefit out of one of the three?
Gosh, they're independently important. I would say the Slack channel especially, because we have a support channel in Slack, for example, that, if you have a problem, like immediate need, like you're in the field, you're freaking out, you can just throw the idea out there and somebody will jump in that has more experience than you and they'll help you in the field.
Gotcha.
That's been really important for ongoing engagement and supporting each other along the way. And then, the mastermind meeting, it ties everything together. We get to chat one-on-one and we have a really structured agenda. We have, at least a 3-page document of previous action items, and then we dive into the agenda, then we do goal setting and we follow up on the goals, and then we assign additional action items, and then there's a bunch of content below it that's relevant to that focus area. So and then the podcast is huge because I get people sending me pictures and video of them listening to it in their car, and they're like, man, I love what you're doing. I love hearing about what people are doing in the field. So each one of them has a very specific role in I guess the synergy of this whole strategy.
So a podcast is basically out there for anybody to listen to, and then obviously as you tier into Slack and the masterminds are all kind of tiered up from an engagement standpoint, I guess.
Yeah, it goes, you get on the podcast, and then if you want to become an ambassador, so it's the ambassador mastermind. So it goes podcast, ambassador, and then mastermind meeting, and then Slack ties it all together throughout the week until we have our meeting.
So, and you're doing this weekly. The masterminds is weekly.
Right now it's weekly. I might get a little. My dad was like, "It's gonna get exhausting." I'm like, "I don't care. I want to grow as much as possible and see where it goes." But it might go down to a monthly. But I want to keep on doing it weekly for now.
The structure for the call that you just outlined on the masterminds call, I think that's a very fundamental component, because anytime you get, I guess, a group of people together and start having conversation, you can go all over the place. So it sounds like you got structure. Where did you get the concept for that structure?
Man, I've been in the Google Docs and the Google Apps game for like 10 years. And if you go all the way back to when I was an IT director and a project manager, I would use Google Docs, and I'd be like, we're going to have a meeting, but it's going to be structured. We're going to have action items from the previous meeting, and we're going to follow a format, and I'm going to moderate it. So, and it's going to be very, it's going to be strategic and tactical at the same time. We're not going to waste everybody's time in the meeting. There's going to be a very, very formal structure to it. It might sound rigid, but it keeps people on the path and organized, and lets people talking all at once. Because I make sure that I have an organizer. It's going to be me and then maybe 2 other people. And then I'll call on people and then do goal setting. Say, hey, Will, hey, Marco, hey, hey, Chad. Yeah, I'll say like that person's name, and that'll kind of set the tone. I'm like, everybody put their phone on mute, and I moderate the whole thing.
So you got some strict guidelines for the masterminds to kind of keep it on, which I think is the right way to do it. I've been on several different calls, and some of them can get off track very easily. So you're setting goals, following up on them, and just kind of keeping everybody engaged in that aspect. The Slack channels obviously is just I would imagine an ongoing flow of information. And then obviously, as we mentioned, the podcast. What else are you looking to do with this group of people that you're collecting in this nation that you're building together? Are you going to start running for president down the line? What's the
Yeah. Well, I'm Canadian, so I think I have to get my U.S. citizenship and become president, and that's not going to happen. But so the goal right now, so I got this thing in 2020 called Content Tsunami 2020, and it's just going to be making even more content, if you can believe that. I'm doing the Gary Vaynerchuk, just content, and it's actually really effective. So what I'm going to do, my goal is to get on the road, follow up with all the podcast guests, and shadow them while they go, in their truck to a work site, to a workplace, and get a bunch of video content and do follow-up podcasts and just get a whole ton of content and make a whole, like, it could be like a reality TV series. I mean, who knows, man? There's a lot of opportunity around it. And, eventually I will have to get some sort of money or sponsorship coming in. That's just kind of like how you have to do business, because I'm not going to pay out of pocket for it. So there is a strategy around that for sure.
So another question for you on that, because I think one of the missions that you said at the beginning was to bring awareness to the low voltage industry and people that want to get involved in the industry, maybe make that as their career. Could you see any type of a training program that could launch out of this that you could start trying to?
Gosh, yeah, absolutely. That is another goal. I do have a lot of these strategies written down, and having like the YouTube channel is going to be huge, and doing training videos. And I've already talked to one of the guys on the ambassador team about that. It's just a matter of, because we got full-time jobs, they have wife, kids, and all that stuff. I mean, this is just a side project, but it could easily become a very lucrative and very large business if we just kind of put it into gear. But yeah, to answer your question, yes, that is an opportunity.
Because that is kind of the goal that you're trying to do, is to bring awareness to the industry. So let me ask you this question, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but just for a clarification, because if anybody's listening to this podcast, watching the podcast, they go, okay, I'm tracking, building community and all this, but what in the world is low voltage? You kind of touched on it a little earlier, but from just a definition standpoint, how would you classify that for anybody that has no idea what in the world you're talking about?
Anything below 50 volts. So if you want to think about like fiber optic and category 6, like data cable or access control cable, anything that like won't shock you and you don't need certifications like most of the time, and you don't need like all these weird permits depending on your location. Pretty much anybody with a pair of snips and a crimping tool can come into low voltage infrastructure. It's not always the best to do that, but it's basically just the infrastructure that runs the internet is like the low voltage infrastructure.
Okay, cool. So I just wanted to get that from a clarification standpoint. So other things that you're doing to build community, obviously you're running the Instagram channel. I would imagine you're doing all kinds of other social presence as well. If anybody is trying to figure out how they can get involved in this, what would be the best thing for them to try to figure out?
I would say get on Instagram and start engaging, and then start DMing me or anybody in the community. I don't think you can go on Instagram and not hear about Low Voltage Nation if you're in this field at this point, because there's so many people that are using the hashtag. But I would say Instagram first. I'm on every social platform. I'm even doing stuff on like TikTok, just kind of hanging out there a little bit. But if they want to get involved, reach out to me. I'm easy to find on the internet, and get on the podcast. And then if you want to get even more involved, get on the ambassador. If you want to get even more involved, start attending the mastermind meetings and get in the Slack channel.
All right. And so they can find you, and it's lowvoltagenation.com is the website.
Lowvoltagenation.com has all the social links at the top. That includes Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, has the podcast stuff, and the email marketing at lowvoltagenation.com.
Cool. And again, I would say like I said at the very beginning of the conversation, it was very easy to get in contact with you. We got on a phone call, had a chat.
Yeah.
And I really do think that you're onto something really, really cool here, building an interesting community. And I guess I would challenge anybody that's listening or watching this podcast to say, okay, what kind of community can I build if it's directly related to my industry, if it's just like-minded business owners or whatever? How can I create a community, build a community that we can do exactly what you're talking about, get together on a phone call on a regular basis, a video conference, and keep that itinerary, keep that schedule. Mm-hmm. This is what we want to accomplish. These are the goals that we want to set, and hold people accountable to following up on them.
Yeah. It's a really powerful framework, in my opinion. And it's kept people engaged quite a bit, but it takes a lot of work, and that's the cool part about it, because most people aren't willing to do that amount of work. So if you want to build a community, you got to be in for the long haul. It's a lot. So
yeah, most definitely. It's definitely, you've put in a lot of effort for it, even, and it's been really cool that you've been able to do that in a very short amount of time. So your ramp is there, and it looks like you've got a great future in building that community. So that's awesome. Thank you. Congratulations on that. Congratulations on the progress that you've made so far. And if anybody that is listening to this wants to get involved with that, then they can definitely check that out. Blake, I really appreciate your time joining us on the podcast today. It's been awesome learning more about what you've been up to and what you're kind of accomplishing there.
Yep. Hey, man. Thank you so much. This has been great. It's the first time I've been on somebody else's podcast, so it's like a really big milestone for me. So I really appreciate your time, man.
Awesome. Well, for those of you, this is your first time watching or listening, this is the Coffee Break Podcast, and we do this every week, every Tuesday, 9 a.m. on all the social platform, on YouTube, Facebook, and Periscope, as well as on our website at Loc-Doc.net/live. We have a video feed going out with this podcast, and then the audio is available. You can find out and subscribe on any of the platforms at Loc-Doc.net/podcast. We ask if you are listening or watching this, if you'll screenshot it, share it on social media, and tag us. That would be awesome. And so other people can get a hold of this same information as well. And if you're listening on iTunes, if you'll give us a 5-star rating, that will be very beneficial to help get the word out as well. So again, thank you, Blake, for your time today, and we'll see you next time on the Coffee Break Podcast. To learn more about the topics discussed today and to connect with us online to hear all of the episodes available, visit Loc-Doc.net/podcast.
We got so much to say. We got a podcast to make. We're sipping on lattes, and it's time for a coffee break. It's time for a coffee break. Oh, yeah.
The Coffee Break Podcast is brought to you by Loc-Doc Security. We'd love to connect with you online on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Just search LOCDOCINC.